Back to the Culture Call on Praise 93.3 with L. Spencer Smith. Our desire is to reach and empower the community by discussing a cross-section of relevant topics from various perspectives that are essential to its growth and interpersonal connections. Be sure to save our call-in number, 205-752-4800. Be sure to install the free Praise 93.3 app so you can send L. Spencer Smith a message or topic idea. Search for WTSK in your app store.
This is the world premiere. Great morning, precious people. You know what time it is. That's right. It's time for your favorite talk show, The Culture Call. That's right, with yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station. Yes, sir, this is the place where Tuscaloosa meets the world. And for the next 2 hours from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we're going to be talking a little bit about everything. That's right, from society to sports, education to economics, and definitely from religion to relationships. And as always, we are here to create a safe space to have empowering, provocative, and yes, sometimes controversial conversations. And guess what? You can call in or chat it up with us as we learn together right here on The Culture Call. Listen, I want to send a big shout out like I do every morning. That's right, to some folks. Number one, all of our new listeners. If you are new to The Culture Call, this is your first time leaning in with us on this morning, I want to welcome you. You are in the place to be. Absolutely. Yes, and I am excited that you are here to experience this journey with us. And yes, indeed, it is always a journey to be a part of The Culture Call. I promise you, you're going to be blessed on this morning. And we're going to talk a little bit about, like we said in the beginning, everything. So no matter if you're at your cubicle or at your desk, or if you're traveling through the city, or you're listening to us, on vacation, doesn't matter. I want to welcome you to The Culture Call. Yeah. Number two, to all of our committed, faithful listeners. That's right. You move right on in from Brother Jay and you listen to the CC Culture Call, and you're part of the CC family. Yeah, you are the reason why we are the number one talk show. Yeah, according to the Alabama Broadcasters Association. Yeah, we are the number one in our market. Yeah, the Culture Call, and we could not have done that without you. And so I want to send a tremendous level of appreciation and gratitude to those of you who consistently listen to me every day, whether you're at home, on your job, whether you're traveling. You tune in and make us what we are. Thank you so very much. And last but not least, I want to give a big shout out always to the inimitable Brother Jay, who leads us right in every day from 5 a.m. all the way to 10. He passes me that hot blazing baton and said, go ahead, son, run on and see what the end is going to be. And that's exactly what we are going to do. I'm super excited that he is, or to be a part of his team. And we are grateful for what God is doing with us and at Praise 93.3 and WTSK. Listen, I'm telling you, we are taking over the airwaves. That's right. And I am super excited about him and his leadership and his mentorship. Listen, y'all, do me a big old favor, right? Y'all got any favors for this morning? I'll tell you what I need you to do. Get your smart device, your Apple or your Android device, and go to your app store. Each and every smart device has one, an app store where you can download programs and things of that nature. Go ahead to yours, and I need you to search Praise 93.3 FM. Go ahead, do it. Praise 93.3 FM, and there you're going to find a free 99 app. Does not cost you one single solitary penny. That's right. Download that on your phone and you can hear us from wherever you are and no matter what you are doing. Absolutely. We want to make sure that you're able to stay in touch and stay in tune with what's happening, not only with the Culture Call, but with the great programming here at Praise 93.3 FM and WTSK. We don't want you to miss that. So no matter whether you're in Topeka, Kansas, Kansas, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, or right here in the beautiful city of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Montgomery, Mobile, Birmingham, Huntsville, Boulder, Utah, Aliceville. That's right. Gordo, Reform, we don't care where you are. You can hear us all over the United States and definitely all over the world. So be a part of that. Listen, ask number 2. Here it is. Ask number 2. I need you. I really need you to email me your public service announcements and events to culturecall.praise@gmail.com. That's culturecall.praise@gmail.com. Somebody said, when I'm doing that, you move too fast. Okay. Well, let me slow it down. culturecall.praise@gmail.com. That's right. Go ahead and give me an opportunity to tell Lottie Dottie and everybody the wonderful things that you are doing in your church or your community, in your sorority, your fraternity, whether you are an artist getting ready to have a concert or do your first live recording, or whether you are a pastor getting ready to start a church or run a revival. Does not matter. I want to let everybody know what's going on so that we can put some faces into place so that you will know that the space that you take up in the world really means something, that what you're doing is a blessing to our community. Do you know why? Because we do it better when we do it together. And as always, write down this number, 205-752-4800. That's 205-752-4800. Now listen, I know a lot of you can't call, but some of you can. Go ahead and call me and let me know what you think about the show. Let me know your experience. Yeah, ask me a question, whatever it is. This is your show, so I want to hear from you. Go ahead and be a part of the conversation. So listen, do me a favor, sit back and relax. Grab you some coffee. You know how we do it, Maxwell House or Starbucks. Or maybe coffee is not your thing. Yeah, maybe you're more of a tea person. Go ahead and get you some herbal tea. If you're trying to calm down, chamomile. And if you're trying to wake up a little bit, go and get you some green tea. It has that little caffeine kick. Yeah, that will work you up, spur you over until you can get to lunch break. Yeah, because that's how long we'll be with you. And maybe you're not a coffee or a tea person. Go ahead and get you some water, some alkaline water, some spring water, and detox that body. Get down to those cells, wake them up, and say, hey, let's get hydrated and get into the culture. Culture Call. For the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about mental health awareness, and we want to do the same today. I want to continue down that path. We've got a couple more weeks in the month of May, to go, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want to tackle a pretty sensitive subject this morning. That's right. So I need you to lean in. Go ahead and get you a pack of nabs or whatever your toast or whatever you're eating for breakfast. You know, we're almost at brunch time, but go ahead, get you some bacon and eggs, some grits, or whatever. And I need you to lean into this morning. I want to talk about levels of abuse and its effect on mental health. I want to talk about mental health and abuse on this morning. And it is a provocative, somewhat controversial topic that we're broaching today. And I understand it. I want to make sure that we're able to have a conversation because of, number one, of the realities of abuse that happens from our childhood even into our adulthood. Some may have experienced that trauma and that those kinds of painful realities in their life. Number two, I do not want to disconnect what is happening currently in our culture with all of the awareness of domestic abuse and violence against women that's going on, and how we have as a society at whole treated the victim with some kind of in the middle of the road situations, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk about how we can be on the step of healing and wholeness and moving beyond the abusive mentality or mindset of the things that have affected you in your mentality, in your attitude, your perspective of life, etc. And I think it's very important, especially for those of us who are spiritual or church people. I think that it's very important to have this conversation, because what I'm coming to understand is abuse happens even in the church, right? Even in the church. And because of the kind of acculturation we have, especially in the black church, of how we forgive and how we recover and how we move on, we allow sometimes abusive predators to exist among us. unbeknownst to understanding that simple ignoring it or placation forgiveness is what I call it. It's not truly forgiveness because it still haunts. It's still in our hearts, right? Or these, these I'm sorries that's really not sorry for their actions. They're just sorry that they got caught. All of those have a tremendous effect on our community, on our families, on our marriages, on our children, etc. And, if we don't talk about them, we will create institutions that will give abuse a safe haven to hide, to be perpetuated from one generation to another, from our grandmothers and our mothers to our daughters and our nieces and to our grandchildren. So we've got to begin now, not in a way of viciousness and vitriol and violence, but we do have to, because we must, number one, honor the reality of people's lives. And I want to treat this subject as sensitive because it really, really is. Right? That if you have never been abused, then there needs to be created a sensitivity and an empathy for those who are victims. And first of all, for the victims of said abuses, I want you to know that we are in tremendous prayer for you and that we are sensitive to the experiences that you have gone through, that no one is pushing you aside, that you, ma'am, you, sir, are seen. Let me say that again. You are seen. And hear that from a person that walks in authority, that walks in leadership, that is a part of the church, that has been my wheelhouse for almost the duration of my life on this planet, that I have been a part of the church. And I've seen many, many things. And there has not been a prime articulation about the abuse that happens. We expect people who are religious and spiritual, who meet Jesus, who are filled with the Spirit, etc. We expect them to mentally get over it, right? We expect the application of the blood of Jesus. We expect with that whole idea from Hebrews, when it says, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. We believe that when something is covered by the blood, that absolves us to the utmost from dealing with the mental haranguings and effects that can have on the individual. And even though we attempt to encourage people to move on and to get over it, you've got to understand how glib and how uncaring that must sound if you've never been a true and real victim of abuse. And there are people even now because there are historical underpinnings that go with this whole abusive narrative, or the abuse narrative. And of course, I don't have all the time to deal with that today because, quite frankly, it is more than a 2-hour conversation. I want to start something that I'm going to even continue into next week about how we need to deal with how there needs to be therapy, how there needs to be counseling to those who are yet trying to get over. Yeah, they sing in the choir and they often preach in the pulpit. They are ushers in churches. You see them every day at work and they are functional. Yeah. People are functional, abused, functional victims. And because we see them moving on and because we see them live their daily lives, go to work, we see them get married, have family, et cetera, we have really no clear understanding of what they live through on a mental level, and an emotional level, of how they have to push beyond thoughts and reflections and remembrances in their minds about the abusive situations in their lives, especially when the abusers are still alive, especially when the abusers are revered, especially when the abusers have a level of proximity yet to us, right? Especially when, as a child, when you try to tell someone in authority, an adult, so that the healing process could begin, you were pushed to the side and said, don't mention it, or that didn't happen, or you were popped in the mouth for making such an accusation against a revered individual that, and so we've got to be sensitive to that, because that is the reality of a lot of people. Beloved, Coach Cole, as a pastor, I've had an opportunity to sit and speak with many people about the journeys of their lives. And one of the things that I cherish absolutely of the call of God, I'm so very honored, humbled, and grateful that God would trust me with the personal nuances of people's personal journeys, right? And I sometimes sit in awe and disbelief of the stories and the narratives that people tell to talk to me about in private. And I am bound by my priestly duties to be confidential, but abuse is nothing to play with. Let me just say that I have seen over the years, almost 30 years of pastoring, I have seen the effect on adults and what it has done to them who have been abused as children. And they think that hurt and pain and neglect are a part of their human existence, that it's supposed to be there, or that is the way that they're supposed to be treated, because something in that event, in that abusive event, has affected their mind and their mentality, that has built strongholds and arguments in their minds that, yeah, this is just the path for me. And when you're not careful, they can even learn in the church religious environment that path, that abuse was God's assignment to their lives, right? That was a part of the makeup of their testimony. That if you're not careful and you get someone who's not necessarily skilled in the word and skilled in human relationships, you will assign a level of divinity to abuse, to say, and remove it from human choice and decision, and destructive individuals, right? And who made choices to inflict pain on people. The church has an inadvertent way of making it seem like that abuse is a badge of honor that God assigns to certain people. And first of all, I want to tell you that is absolutely wrong. That is absolutely not biblical. No, that God in his sovereignty has given to every man the power of free will, self-choice. I understand the sovereignty of God's will, but even in that, man must still choose to be in alignment with God. Yeah, he must be in alignment, in agreement with God. And so people make their own choices. Yeah, I know God sees everything. He's omniscient. He knows everything. He's omnipresent. He is everywhere at the same time. That when you're leaving God, you're running right back into him. He is from everlasting to everlasting. Yeah. And I know that he has all power to cause things to go forward or things to cease. Right. And because of that nature, that divine nature of God that we have ascribed, if we don't understand that, and all through the guise and through the understanding, or better yet, of human self-will, human choice and decision, humans acting badly, humans, humans' desire for control and to remain in power, right? If we don't understand how the word in Genesis chapter 1 verse 28, the word dominion and the phrase subdue and have dominion, take over and pillage, when you don't understand, if you put those two words and that phrase in the hands of corrupt men and women, subdue and have dominion, right? If they keep reading, that text never speaks about having that kind of subduing and dominion over people, over human beings, right? And if you think that if you read the scripture and you stop it right there, it might give you the context that it is God's will, or in the parameter or the perimeter of God's will, to subdue and have dominion over people, right? This is the egregiousness of slavery, because this is how people try to biblically justify the enslavement of people, black people in particular, right? Because they pulled a phrase from the scripture, number one. Number two, they used it, took it out of its original language, which was Hebrew or Greek or Aramaic. They pulled it there and they applied Western English definition to it, right? And then they read the text and they skew it hermeneutically and from an interpretive sense to aid and abet their deviance. And then they assign certain divinities to their deviance so that no one could push back on them, because who's going to come up against God, right? Which is a poor interpretation of the text, right? And men have been doing it from the beginning of time. And it is because the Bible has no visible signature, or there is no videotape of the events. We can only through history and through men's interpretations and their intimations believe their iterations of the text. And what happens is that many people use the text to justify their bad behavior. Let me say that again, that many people use the text that we revere as inspired by God, theopneustos, God breathed. We begin to do that and assign divinity on the places where we have been devilish, demonic, and diabolical. And part of my assignment today is to, first of all, get you to understand that as a child, as a person coming into the earth of worth being an agency, God never assigns anyone to do you evil, right? To take away your innocence and strip you of your being narrative so that you live dysfunctionally in the world, right? That has what was decided by men and women. That was the human result of the fall, right? That was somebody made a choice to put their hands on you. Somebody made the choice to speak down to you and use their tongue provocatively to strip you of your identity. Somebody used their power and their strength, physical strength over you, to manipulate your agency, right? That wasn't ordained of God. That was a decision that they made, right? And I need you to make that kind of distinction so that we can create some distance between what we think God has ordained and what man does. Because everything that man does not mean that God has ordained it. Yes, God has ordained authority. Yes, right? Yeah, but God does not ordain how men always use authority. God does not sponsor, or he does not legitimize or authenticate all of the decisions that people make in authority. Right? So that's important, right? Yes, God biblically has ordained human authority in the earth. And I'm using that word authority because I'm going to come back to it, right? As we talk about the abuse context, right? And so, yes, I don't want you to think that God done put in people. No, God has no issue, and he ordained men and women to be in charge. Let them have dominion, right? So we're not going to go back and forth about that in the scripture. But I also want to make sure that we are clear that the ways that men and women have utilized abuse does not mean that they have God's sanction, does not mean that they have God's sponsorship. I gave you authority and I told you how to use it. You decided to use it in a different way. You decided to use it to harm people. You decided to use it to abuse or molest a child. You decided to use your authority as a husband to slap and beat your wife. You decided to use your authority as a woman to sexually abuse this young boy in school, as a school teacher. Yeah, that's important, because what you do need to understand, and here it is that there can be no abuse where there is no level of authority. Let me say that again, that there can be no abuse where there is not a recognized level of authority. I want to say it again. Culture call, lean in, y'all. because this is going to be a good show today, right? There can be no abuse where there is not any authority. That the reason why a lot of times we submit or give abuse permission to exist in our lives is because the person that is doing the abusing is in some level of perceived or appointed authority in our lives, period, right? That is important, right? Teachers don't abuse principals, but principals abuse teachers. You know why? Because the principal has the authority. Children don't abuse parents. Parents abuse children. Do you know why? Because the parents have the authority. Watch this. Husbands abuse wives. Yeah, and wives can abuse husbands because that is a place, what? Of mutual authority. It is a house that does not understand how authority has been meted out and appropriated, and so authority is abused by the means of abuse. Authority is ill-defined or misused by the means of abuse. And so when we start talking about abuse, we have to recognize the authority element, right? That the only reason why the abuse a lot of times was allowed to exist, and I'm strictly talking, I'm not talking anything right now that is mental. We're not talking about mental effects yet, but we're talking about the existence of abuse. The reason why it was allowed to exist is because there is the element of perceived authority that is being exercised, one person over the other, right? And that is important, right? And then we talk about authority, we then have to talk about two other words, power and control, right? Power is not control, and control is not power. Right? Power, biblically, when you use power in the biblical divine sense, it means that you use influence. You use influence. You use that God-given influence to move things forward, to better things, to affect change in things. Control is when you don't really have power, you utilize another sense of manipulation to get someone or something to do what you want it to do. Right? And so it is dangerous. By the word authority, already we know they have some level of power. Right? But then when that person doesn't understand the purpose of authority and the power that they wield, they'll use control to assert that they're in power. And that is dangerous for those when we're living in this human context. That's dangerous to be with someone that is perverted and have all kinds of attitudes and wickedness in their heart. They have a demented sense of being that you could be even attracted. See, now all the doors are open for levels of perversion, levels of distortion, levels of evil perception, when a grown man can become sexually aroused by a child to sexually abuse them. When a grown individual does not understand that their responsibility in that child's life is to train up that child in the way that it should go. Right? See, God doesn't leave it up to chance. He gives us clarity on what our roles of authority are. Parents are to train up the child in the way they should go, and when they get older, they will not depart from it. That right. But when a parent is using that child or abusing that child, it means that they're not training them. You're training them in fear. You're training them to see themselves as nothing. You're training them not to believe in themselves and not to trust your hand. You're training them how to respond to certain empathy when they grow up. That's what you're training them to do. You're training them to be dysfunctional because of what you're saying. You ain't no good. You're just like your old daddy. You ain't no good. You're going to be whorish like your mama. Well, when you say things like that to a child, you are abusing them, right? You are diminishing their capacity to be the full, distinctive person that God has designed them to be. And that's abuse. Well, Bishop, I ain't never laid no hands on them. That doesn't matter. You laid your mouth on them. And what we understand according to the text says that the tongue is more powerful than the hand. Yeah, because out of your mouth you can create death and or life, right? And so the whole idea is when you are verbally abusive to your child, verbally abusive to your husband, verbally abusive to your wife, that is you saying that I'm going to use a level of control because there is something in them that I want that they're not giving me, or there's something, watch this, that's missing in me that I see in them that I want. Listen, we're going to talk about this abuse and the effects that it has on the mental awareness or the mental health of individuals. And I need you to keep it right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station. I need you to stay here. Don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, Praise 93.3 FM. And we are having a mighty serious conversation today about abuse and its effect on our mental health. And in our first segment, we just wanted to talk about, hey, lay some groundwork, of how abuse can happen. That abuse is not a divine science that God gives to give you a testimony. Come on, no. That God did not allow you as a child to be abused so that you can grow up today as an adult with a testimony. No. That's not what happened. No. God does not give men authority to slap and beat up women, treat them like dogs, simply to help them overcome by the words of the blood of the Lamb and the word of the testimony. That is just, to think that already is kind of twisted. Don't you think, right? What kind of way do we see God? What kind of way do we see our Father who loves us with an everlasting love? So we got to change some of our definitions. And a lot of those definitions have to be taught in church. I know I do. I do that every time I get up. I try to empower and bring some level of clarity and light. Yeah, some clarity, a level of light, some elucidation to how we ought to live this life and really what it means. I let people fuss about what they're going to fuss about. Smith, you so smart. You try to, no. My job is, like my granddaddy says, whatever you learn, it is unto God. It's for God's people. It is to make them better. And you don't get degrees to become arrogant. You don't learn things to become arrogant and heady and high-minded and hoarded over people, right? That there are some people that know things that won't tell you those things that will help you. They just want to lord their knowledge over you. Oh, I know something you don't know. Well, that's not godly, period. That's not godly at all. And so I just want to bring some clarity for you to understand that that's not what God would do. God would not cause a father to abuse his infant daughter, to give that infant daughter a testimony. What? Are we serious? Let's stop that twisted thinking. I want to stop that. That's why we have a generation that doesn't trust church. We have a generation that doesn't trust religion, doesn't trust pastors, doesn't trust leaders. And I want to say, and I don't blame them. Because the way that we explain the Bible, the way that we explain the notions of God and his divine intentions are so off kilter than what God speaks and says of himself, right? So this whole idea of abuse, this wicked thing that seeks to break the very elements of people, right? Because what it does, y'all, one of the dastardly things that abuse does, it leaves the victim with a perpetual why. Why did this happen to me? Why does not anybody believe me? Why does not anybody see me? Why does that person, why are they still in that place of authority? And that it causes them to live that way, never being able to put their finger on the prime, the prime purpose for their existence. It leaves them with a perpetual question mark, always having them groping on the walls of identity, looking for a light switch to come on to give some kind of answers and solutions to why is this or why was this my lot in life, right? That it is the way that the perspective is already shapen from childhood. And they begin to either one, build walls against relationships. They begin to have distorted and disrespectful views of authority, even those authority that comes to cover them and teach them and train them and instruct them. It causes them to be distorted about who they are. Maybe I deserved it. You know, what was I doing with my behavior? They're always second guessing their purpose. Right? It creates abuse, creates an individual that really is a hypocrite, is a cover up, right? It causes them to consistently live in a theatrical nature against what can be the possible reality for which they are alive in the first place, right? And so when you don't have answers and you grow up experiencing certain things without answers, it causes you to buy in to the notion, watch this, that I deserved it. That if those people are allowed to be free, the abuser is allowed to be free. The violator is allowed to have position and authority and all that. And we see that happening even in our culture right now. We see that happening even from the trial from the former president, dealing with that. We hear how he is. And what is egregious? What is egregious is that, a part of the church, look at it, this is reality. A part of the church is willing to sweep that under the rug to also empower other abuses to other people, right? And so we see that. We see that with the commentary, with the reality of what's going on with rap mogul Sean Combs, Diddy. We see it happening, right? It's right in front of our faces. We see it with Jeffrey Epstein, the late Jeffrey Epstein, creating a whole island of sexual predators and abuses. Right? And here it is. The egregious thing about that is that there is no collective majority that's seeking to change laws and rules, because a lot of times people who have the authority in Washington, people who have authority in government, they don't want to change it. They don't want to say anything about it. Why? Because they have used their power and abused their authority in ways that will uncover them. So if I set a law that uncovers someone else, I could very well be uncovering myself. We see it in religious sectors with the Catholic Church, with the Methodist Church, with the Southern Baptist Church. Right? We see it. And even though it is not as spoken of and pronounced, it exists in black church too. That's from Pentecostal to Baptist to AME, Zion, CME. Yes, those levels of abuses, because it is never brought to bear. That when it is not discussed, darkness is the refuge for things that are evil. That when things are, and when I say darkness, when people act as if it never happened, or act as if ignorance is going to heal, right? Ignorance is bliss. Yeah. When they act as if that is the case, that, he the Reverend Doctor, so we don't need to say anything because he sure does preach. He preached my mama's funeral. He preached my wedding. He christened my children. So we definitely not going to talk about the skeletons of abuse in his closet. What I need you to do, ma'am, is just suck it up and take it and let the world roll on and let the church keep moving forward. And that, unfortunately, is the kind of mentality that we a lot of times grow up in, a kind of world that we live in, right? And it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate because in the wake of that kind of perspective and movement, in the wake of that, watch this, what also happens is there is a flood, a forgotten flood of victims, of people who have mental challenges. They don't have proper mental health care. They've never been to therapy. They've never been to counseling, right? And these people try to go on with life, right? They try hard. And so sometimes we see individuals but have absolutely no idea of what they have survived, especially in terms of the abusive context. Right? And that becomes and then it's repeated generation after generation after generation after generation and we keep doing it, and we deal with it like we don't see it, right? We deal with it like it does not exist. We deal with it like, hey, don't tell, right? Because we believe that some people, it is that they should be able to have abusive predilections. We believe that should exist in order to maintain what we consider to be the greater good of what they're doing in their lives. But what of the victim? What of the child that's trying to navigate their life? What do we do for them? What do we say to them? What did we say to them when they finally get up enough gumption to admit what happened to them? And what do we tell them? Go back and play with their Tonka toys or their Barbie dolls? What do we tell them? Forget it? What do we say? You know? And so, Coach Cole, that's something that we have to deal with in our community, because guess what? We are a secretive people, right? As much as there might be a tendency to gossip and create rumors in our community, we also are an intensely secretive people, and we cover for those who are often violators for egregious things. And again, I'm not bringing any kind of personal indictment. What I'm asking the question today is, why do we do that? What do we hope will be the end result? Oh, now I know what we hope. We're hoping that person is going to be delivered. And I use that delivered in air quotes. You can't see me because I'm on the radio, but we're hoping that person who's the violator will get better. We're hoping that person never does it again, right? And we're hoping that the victim can forget about it and lead a productive life. But the question becomes, how? How are they supposed to do that? How do we end up to that resolution for that person that has been abused? How does that wife that has been abused, that has walked around months covering up black eyes, going to work and going to choir rehearsal and being silent about it, hiding it from her children, how does she live? Well, it happened in my family. My grandmama did it. That does not mean that it was right. That's what it doesn't mean. Y'all don't have to say amen. I brought my own amen with me. I get it. I understand it. I understand it. But the reality is you got to tell, how do people live after such a thing? Yeah? I didn't stand to the altar for better, for worse, for my name to change to everlast across my face. No, I didn't. No, I didn't do that. I didn't bring children in this world for them to be violated by a sick individual. And just because a lot of times they have authority, right? See, if the individual does not necessarily have authority, we really don't have any problems with putting them, allowing legal instances to take place. We don't have that issue. But when there's closeness, again, I started off this show with talking about the proximity. The proximity is the thing that a lot of times that creates secrecy. Right? And when we do not do what we need to do, come here. What is God really saying? What is God really saying? Yeah, when he sees us overlook those who have been abused. Right? I want to say emphatically that the victim deserves some level of covering. Some level of adjudication. They deserve some level of recompense. Some level, on some degree. And they deserve some level of care. They deserve it. Right? And here is the reality. Here is the reality, Culture Call. A lot of times we don't see it and we don't treat it until it happens to us in our home, until it happens to someone that is close to us. Then we'll understand. And I'm not wishing bad on anybody. That's not what I do. I don't know. That's not my resolve in life. What I am saying, however, is that we've got to root up abuse on every level. Domestic, sexual, verbal, economic abuse. Economic abuse? What do you mean economic abuse? Listen, there are people that go to work every day and got to turn their check in, and they're living off of quarters and pennies because they're giving their money to an individual that controls the purse strings. And that could be husband and or wife, right? And that is abuse. They can't even get a pop at a soda at lunch because they don't have money, because they ration out money, you know? And so you have a lot of levels of abuse, right? Relational abuse that a person is not even able to commit. They love the thought of someone being in love with someone, or they go around telling people or making people feel like they want a relationship when they know within them that they're not convinced, that they're not ready to decide, and they leave a wake and a trail of broken hearts. That's relational abuse, right? And again, what the late Dr. Miles Monroe says is that where purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. Let me say that again because that was good. I said, where purpose is unknown, abuse is inevitable. So let's back up into that. Let's talk about that for these next few seconds, for these next few minutes, right? That the reason why abuse really occurs is because individuals don't know the purpose for a thing. If you understood the purpose of a child, right, that they are God's heritage, that they are arrows in God's quiver, that they are literally, as the Bible denotes children as God's future. If you really understood the purpose and what that really meant, that the way that your family and that a bloodline is going to progress and going to break patterns and going to get better is through children, the children that we have, then the thought of them being abused will also get you to see that I can't get to a whole future. My family can't get to a whole future. We can't break generational patterns, cycles, and decisions and choices if this child is not whole going to the future. Now, that would stop, if we had an understanding, that would stop sexual abuse. That would stop, with regards to children, pedophilia. That would stop verbal abuse and how we speak to our children in a way that is not empowering, right? Because I understand the purpose for my child, right? When I understand the purpose for my wife, that she is my covering, she is my help, that she assists me in getting to the future as a man, that she is my glory, that she is my favor, that she is my blessing from God, that she is, the queen is the most powerful player on the chessboard, not the king. No, the king is not the most powerful player. The king is the most vulnerable player, but the queen is the most powerful player. And when you understand that that is the purpose and the power of a wife, then it will change the way that you hit her and talk to her. When you really understand her true purpose. Oh my goodness. I got a lot to talk about. I'm telling you, I need y'all to keep it right here. Go and get y'all something to drink. Get you a Coke, get you a Pepsi, a Dr. Pepper, or something, a Sprite, whatever, some water, right? I said everything unhealthy. Go get you some water, right? And keep it right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith. Listen, we got more to come. I need you to keep it right here. Don't you dare miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back. It's the top of the hour, 11 a.m. and some change. That's right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith. Yeah, that's me. Right here on Praise 93.3 FM, WTSK, your inspiration station. That's right. We play the blessed and great gospel music all day long. And we need you to go ahead, make sure you download that app and keep it tuned in so that you can hear exactly what is happening on the station. Absolutely. And the wonderful programming. Listen, I'm telling you right now, we are having an amazing conversation. So I want to send a welcome and a shout out to all of you who joined us for the second hour of the Culture Call. It has been blazing from 10 a.m. all the way up until this point in time. And listen, these next few minutes will not be anything different. We still got more to talk about on today's topic, which is abuse and its effect on mental health. Abuse and its effect on mental health. And we've tried today, Culture Call, to make sure that everybody understands that this whole idea of abuse, where it stems from, what is connected to, And we tried to push into the understanding before the break about understanding purpose for a thing. And again, the late Dr. Miles Monroe says that where purpose is unknown, misunderstood, abuse is inevitable. Right? That abuse happens because whoever is the violator does not know the purpose of a thing. And we started off talking about children. When parents or when people don't know the purpose of children, that they are God's future heritage, his arrows and his quiver. And they are just our children are just on loan from the mind of God, according to Jeremiah chapter number 2, where he says, listen, before your mother formed you, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you, right? And I ordained you. I had placed something on you. I had placed definition and parameter. I had given you purpose before I put your earth suit on in your mother's womb and those chromosomes came together. I knew you. And so we try to give an understanding. So whenever you abuse a child, whenever you verbally abuse them, whenever you physically abuse them, and that includes sexual, whenever you do any of that, that's just a clear indication that you have no clue of what the purpose for children are. That when you can look at children and even be sexually aroused, you've got to begin to see a deviance inside of you. That individual, there is something twisted, wicked, perverted in that individual that can do that. I hope that we collectively agree that there is no no gray area in that, right? I hope that culture call we all agree, because if we don't agree, I may not be the show you need to listen to, because that's we value children, right? And we have the responsibility to train up or rear our children in the way that God has designed them to go. So you got to put Jeremiah with the Proverbs text that when we train them up, we are understanding that God is telling us what he has purposed our children to be. And we are to lead them in that area, right? And train them in the way that they should go, that when they get older, they won't depart from the way that God thought them to be. When you don't have that kind of understanding about your children, then you will abuse them and you'll beat them up and you'll beat them with irons, and you'll become all kinds of stuff. You'll become Penny's mama on Good Times, right? You're burning with irons. You break broomsticks over their head. All of those different kinds of things. And you will call that, watch this, sparing the rod, spoiling the child. You'll add some kind of divine understanding to it because you're ignorant to what God is really saying concerning what is the purpose of that child, right? Exactly. You don't beat a child like you beat a horse. You don't beat a child like you beat a beast of burden. That is, sir, that is, ma'am, that is parent abuse. Period. Right. Now, if the state understand that, I need the church to understand that too. I need religious folks to understand that. That if the state will take your child because they see those marks and those abuses on that child, if the state can understand that, then the church should not be trying to defend it, talking about, no, there are better ways, and we've got to learn healthier ways to discipline our children, yet maintain the purpose for which God has allowed them, to be in the earth. And a lot of times the discipline is to remind them of what God has said to them. Yeah, you're acting right now, like somebody who has no purpose from God. You're acting, how you're acting in school, Johnny, little Jessica, that's not how God intended you to act. See, all of that remembrance a lot of times is the discipline. It's to bring them back into line, because that's what discipline is. It's to teach them to walk in the way, right, in which they were purposed to walk in. Right? A man or a woman that does not know the purpose for their spouse, that it's a mutual submission. That I hear you, the husband is the head of the wife. That's not a political position. That's an anatomical position. That is an anatomical position. What goes on in the head, right? That means that he's a coverer, that he makes the best, watch this, decisions for his wife. And in fact, he always decides to treat her like the precious, delicate, fragile vessel that Peter says. Right? That's how that works. And watch this. And that he understands that also, according to the Genesis context, that she is his helpmeet suitable that he doesn't just make solitary decisions by himself, that there are times when he has to get a word from the queen. And there are going to be times when she is right. And there are going to be times when you got to submit to that woman's wisdom. If she's a wise woman. That's why you got to be careful. The book of Proverbs teaches us, who can find a virtuous woman. That whole passage, if you read it from 31, Proverbs 31 from verse 1, or it is not a text written to women. I've said this before, that Proverbs 31 is not a text written to women. Proverbs 31 is a mother talking to her son. A mother is talking to her son on what kind of woman to have, what kind of woman to be a part, to have in his life. Right. That whole, and she's telling him, when you find that woman, right, and you wife her, you obtain what? Favor from the Lord. Not just because she's got lips, hips, and fingertips. No, it's because she knows how to do things. She knows how to make you look good. She knows how to stand before people and cause you to be proud that that's the woman God has given me. That's the woman that makes me proud. That's the woman that takes care of my life. When I'm sick, she makes sure. That's the purpose. Right. I said it before, that the queen is the most powerful player on the chessboard. But you playing checkers, sir. Everybody trying to be the king. But the issue is, no, chess is a game of strategy. On the chessboard, the king is the weakest, is the most vulnerable player. Yes, absolutely. He can move only a step at a time. But a queen can move anywhere on the board because the objective of the queen, come closer, is to protect the king. Yeah. That's why the objective is, if you're a good chess player, the way that you have a definite checkmate is to make sure that you take the queen off the board. You see what I'm saying, sir? And so you have to treat your wife in that kind of light, the way that God has designed. And wife, yes, that's your husband. He's a coverer. He's a protector. He's a provider. Yeah, he's a shelter. Right? He's supposed to be a strong tower. You protect him. You make sure that his life is in peace. You make sure you do whatever you got to do to assist him with longevity. Right? You don't lead him or coerce him or manipulate him into stuff that you want. You do what is best for all of us. You don't disrespect him in public. You don't pay your pastor more honor and respect than you pay your husband. It got quiet. Ain't nobody saying nothing now. That's right. I'm talking to you over there in the back trying to hide from me. Get up. Yeah. Here's the truth of the matter. The truth of the matter. Yeah. You don't pay any other kind of honor and respect than you pay your husband. Your husband should not feel lesser. To do that is you're abusing him. He got to come home and you done celebrated the pastor. You done cooked for the pastor. You done gave the pastor the biggest piece of fried chicken. You done fixed the pastor's plate. And then when the pastor ain't around, you make your husband get his own plate, his food in the freezer, all kind of stuff. Oh, really? You cook for you? I ain't feel like that. But if Reverend Doctor say so, I came over, you going to give me the best plate? No, that's not honoring your husband. That's abusive. Talk in here. And so, again, I wholeheartedly align myself with Dr. Miles Monroe, that where purpose is misunderstood, abuse is inevitable. When you don't understand the purpose for a thing, you will abuse it. And it happens on every level, right? It happens on every level, right? And so we gotta make sure that we start understanding things. That's why before people get married, they have premarital counseling, because I want you to understand. First of all, I know that this is not a veritable rule in terms of anything biblical or universal. But my rule is I need you to be with a person for at least a year, 4 seasons. I need you to see them happy. I need you to see them sad. I need you to know what their triggers and their traumas are. I need you to know their journey. I need you to come up out their eyes and out their pants. And I need you to know what is the framework of the environment that person was reared in, because that is what they're going to present to the table when they say I do to you. And when we don't understand those kinds of things, then you get married to an individual, and then when you don't understand what you signed up for, because marriage is not an event, it's an assignment. It is an assignment for the future. Yeah. Okay. So then, where that's not, then you're going to get frustrated, and then abuse is going to start happening in that home. Dishes going to start flying. Doors are going to start slamming, and it's going to become physical, verbal, etc. When you don't have an understanding. Before people have children, I bring them up, or when they're bringing up for baby dedications, I talk to the parents. I talk to the godparents. I talk to the church. I talk to the grandparents. I want everybody to know that we are in a village, and this child is going to be looking at us for training, for pattern, for principle. And you got to know what your role is in their life to bring forth that divine purpose inside of them. Period. My mama raised me, my daddy we don't care nothing about that. If you want to be honest with it, that you have an opportunity to make another decision. There is another reality that you can have. Now, I sincerely apologize for your parents and our parents not knowing what to do with you. They were raised in a different kind of time, in a different kind of way. But now that we know better, we must what? Do better. Culture call? We cannot use the excuse of this happened to me and this person did this to me. No, we can't do that. This is not what we do. We've got to be better to create a better world, a better family, stronger families. We've got to do that. Period. And we've got to understand each other's purpose. We have to understand each other's purpose. Facts. And I know you feel some type of way about it, but I got to tell you the truth. I got to tell you what God loves. I got to tell you what the wisdom is. I got to give you the insight. And abuse happens, right? When we don't understand authority, authority comes from God, right? And he does it to protect, to cover, to provide, right? Authority is given so that we can see down the road and instruct and correct, not so that we can take advantage of it. As a matter of fact, the disciples thought authority was about power and control, and Jesus had to make some differentiation between the level of authority that he was giving them and what the world was doing. He said, the way that you see them lead, that is not what you are supposed to be doing. Don't treat people that way. He begins to create a cosmic difference between the authority that is given by God and the authority that humans assume for themselves, and how they twist the authority given by God, right? That God, yes, puts up one and sets another, but it is their responsibility how they utilize that power. Power and authority is not something that you use to control people. No, you use authority to control circumstances that will affect people. Right? Yeah. When I come into a room and they're fussing, my kids are fussing, my authority is not to control my kids. My authority is to take control over the environment, take control over the argument. Okay, what y'all fussing about? I need to stop, and I need everybody to go to their room. I need everybody to be quiet for about 10 minutes. Or worship, when my parents, my grandparents were like, all right, y'all fussing and fighting. Well, if you can fight, then you can love, you can hug. If y'all can wrestle on the floor and hurt each other, then you can hug. So go ahead and hug and make up. And when I tell you that was the worst, that was worse. And they're standing there. You heard what I said. If you don't hug them, I'm going to tear them hips up. I'm going to heat up their hind part. And it's like, no, show them some love. That's your brother. Show them some love. That's your sister. Right? And so, yeah, there are ways. Authority is not to control the kids and you beating the kids down because you're trying to beat the child out the kid. No, authority is given so you can control the circumstances, control the atmosphere, control the environment. Right? Authority is so that you can say, be still to the wind and the waves, and to say peace to your children, right? If you look at that narrative in the text, it is peace, be still, right? But he says peace to the disciples, be still to the environment and to the elements. Because the environment and the elements are not giving his peace. You and I are. So when he says peace, he's giving that to his disciples. He's telling be still to the wind and the waves, because the authority is for you to bring your children at peace, or bring that situation and tell that situation, be still, be calm. Let's fix this. What are y'all fighting about? Okay, no problem. You give me the chips. Since y'all don't know how to share yet, give me the chips. And I'm going to give each and every one of you. Now, I'm going to give you the chips, and I want you to share with your brothers and sisters. And you just crying because you don't want to share, because you want all your chips by yourself. But there is a lesson in that, right? See, there's a way that authority can be used when you know how to use it and what it's for, that it will not cause abuse. But Bishop, I just want quiet. I want them to shut up when I say shut up. I want them to go there. I get it. Yeah. But at some given point, you have to understand that as the one that has the authority, that you are the adult, that you don't really have to abuse, that what you say is going to go anyway. So it's just the same, easy to say, go to your room, everybody go to their separate places, right? And I'll call you when I'm ready to see you, than it is for you to take a stick or an extension cord and put whelps in their skin, and beat them like they're slaves, like your name Massa. Huh? You see, it's a choice. It's a choice in acknowledging what the purpose of this authority is. Exactly. Right? When something is going on, you got to know that there is a better way to do a thing. Now, let me vector over to talk to those who have been victims. First of all, again, as I said at the beginning of the show, that you are seen, that you have arrived at a generation where you are seen, you are acknowledged. And I hate that people did not believe you the first time. I hate it. And I cannot imagine the kind of life you have been living. But I want you to know that, yes, there is nothing wrong with therapy, number one. Number two, and that therapy most likely needs to come from outside of the familiar parameters of where you exist. That simply means that, yes, you need to talk to somebody, and it's okay to do that. And it may not always be your pastor, especially if your pastor does not have a degree or does not have acumen in therapeutic science. If they've not gone to school to learn how to be a counselor and a therapist, if they have no kind of academic intellectual backing, then there is no problem with you having a pastor and a therapist, a pastor and a counselor. Right? And if you have an issue, they're going to tell you something off. Then there are Christian counselors. You can search it. You know, we are living in the day of Google. You can search a Christian counselor, Christian therapist, right? Because you need to begin to articulate and detail your journey to someone that can help you move through the nuances of what you experienced. Because we cannot have you out here broken. We cannot have you out here suffering and struggling. No, we cannot do that. We cannot. No, I'm telling you that there is, any pastor that is worth his or her salt will tell you that I don't mind you seeing somebody, right? Oh, you got the Holy Ghost. I get it. I promise you. I understand. But you know what? Here is a notion that we have missed. Our notion that we have missed in the text. That one of the things that Jesus tells them to do is that when I heal you, don't just take my word for it. Go to the priest and show them. And they had different levels of priesthood at the time that could verify a healing, right? That woman with the issue of blood, the text says that she had been trying physicians. So back even in those days, they weren't just simply relying on the Holy Ghost, because the Holy Spirit was performing miracles at that time. Miracles is for unbelievers. But for those who believe, yeah. But see, here's the deal. When you got the Holy Ghost, yeah, I get that. But you're taking high blood pressure medicine. You're taking insulin for your diabetes. Why you ain't stopped that? Huh? You take a Tylenol or an Excedrin for your headache. You rub Bengay on your icy hot on your aching bones and joints. Huh? You see what I'm saying? So we give more value to our physical bodies than we do to our mental essence. And what I am saying to you is, yes, pray, but find somebody to talk to. Pray, yes, but open up your life and your heart to someone that may help you beyond the resolves of what you really know and comprehend. Because I am telling you, hear ye me. I am telling you that it is that place and in those instances that you're going to find relief beyond what you have known, right? Be honest with yourself when you need help. Be honest that it has affected your relationships and your ability to love and trust. Be honest. It has affected your relationships and your ability to find a pastor, to call someone pastor. It has affected every area of your life. You have a problem trusting. You have a problem, confiding in people, establishing relationships. You have a problem performing intimately in your marriage. You have a problem there with relationship because of the abuse, and it's become systemic and it's showing itself in other ways. And what I'm telling you now, that it's okay to give you some help, get some help. It's okay to have the conversation. It is okay to ask the Lord to lead you to who you can trust. That your abuse and all that happened is not for something that you put on Facebook or Twitter. That don't allow people to come pouring in their dysfunctional experiences and you think that you're going to find healing. No, that is what therapists call trauma bonding. That you're just finding a group of people that have gone through the same trauma as you and you're bonding together, trying to make it make sense. And you've got to be very careful of all of that. You definitely have to be careful, culture call, of all of that. I want to tell you it is okay. You're not crazy. You're not losing your mind. You're not doing something demonic and or ungodly because you see somebody. You need someone who specializes in being able to walk you through the journey back to a whole mind, quite frankly, that you may not have ever known in your entire life because of the scars of abuse. So I hope you all get that. I want you to, I'm just telling you, if you're listening to me, and I know you are, it's okay to get somebody to help you on this journey. Somebody, let me qualify it. Somebody qualified who understands the journey and can help you, get to where you need to be. Listen, this is the Culture Call with L. Smith right here on Praise 93.3. We got more to come. I need you to keep it right here. Got a big conversation to talk about. Going to give you some resolutions, some answers to how we can move beyond the abusive moment. And we're going to do it together, all right? So don't miss it.
This is the world premiere.
And we are back right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, Elspeth Smith, having a provocative, yes, and somewhat controversial conversation about abuse and its effects on mental health. And it is my prayer today that you understand that the conversation that we're having. If you're just joining us, that's what we're talking about. This is a heavy one. And I want to offer some kind of how can I say it? I want to offer some kind of ability to be able to say some things concerning how can we get help? How can we help the abused victim? How can we help with the abuse culture in our not just our society, but definitely in our communities? The first thing I want to say is honesty and transparency are so very important. They are so very important, because when that doesn't happen and that person feels as if they are just left out, or nobody sees them or hears them, nobody's going to believe them. I think that creates some of the secrecy in terms of how abuse is able to find cover and perpetuate its existence in our community. And I don't know how. I know that when we get into conversations in territories like this, it becomes very, very sensitive, again, for both the victim and the violator. And please understand what I'm saying, that if you can hear this in all sincerity, both parties need help, right? That angry, violent parent and that abused child, that angry, violent husband and or wife and that abused spouse, right? The people who have been gaslighted and ghosted in relationships, and that person who's doing the gaslighting and the ghosting, who can't commit, right? I think all of that needs to have a discussion in safe spaces and places, right? Because if I am an abuser, where do I go to recover? I can't just recover in the conversations of men and women. Where do people who are violators go and recover, right? If they got Alcoholics Anonymous and Gamblers Anonymous, where do abuse violators go to recover, right? And so that's important. But none of that comes to pass, both for the violator or the victim. And the primary one right now is the victim. Of that never happens if we're not giving a place of honesty. That first of all, we've got to, number one, provide safety and protection, right? Because the victim is in harm's way. Yes, they are in harm's way. So the first thing that we've got to talk about and be honest and transparent about is that there's someone or some people in the equation that are not safe and they are unprotected. And we must first be honest about providing them the safety and the protection that they need to be able to do and to be all that they, what they know how to do and be. They got to do that, period. And when we refuse to do that, when we are not honest about it, when we are covering up for people. Now, I want you to understand this. It's not your fault that that individual rose up to a level of status and authority. They knew they had this problem when they were climbing up the ladders of promotion, climbing up the ladders of success and titular position. They knew that. They already knew. They knew that when they were just a young minister. Now they're the archbishop. They knew that. They knew they had to. So we're going to have to remove some kind of sacrosanctism away from titles and positions and deal with that individual that needs to be some kind of sunlight, right? Sunlight disinfects. There needs to be some level of sunlight that comes there. And I don't like the notion necessarily of exposure, but it is what it is. The Bible talks about it. That whatever is in the dark is going to be exposed by the light. That is the purpose of the light. The reason why you cut the light on is so that you can see the light switch, or you can find or locate what you've been looking for. The only one that doesn't hate the light, that hates the light, are those who love darkness. And the Bible teaches us that men love darkness because their ways are evil. That's what the text says. I didn't make it up. That's what it says. And when you cutting on, especially when we were growing up, when we cut on the lights, yeah, we could see what we were looking for. But the roaches and the mice did not think that. They didn't like that. So there's got to be a level of conversation there. There's got to be a level of honest conversation. Number one, for safety and protection. We've got to get those people and remove them out of dangerous situations, right? And then there's got to be honesty about it, because of the whole idea of validation and empowerment. See, that when you're talking and you're releasing and you're being honest about what happened in your childhood or even in your present context, that when you validate those experiences and feelings, you will stop feeling like you're crazy. You'll stop feeling like something is It will help your mental factor. That's why honesty and transparency is important. Why? Not only because it begins to validate and empower you to utilize your voice to give the journey of what happened, to begin to give details. And your concern, if you are the victim, your concern is not the violator's position. Your concern is doing all you need to do to validate your experience, to let people understand, yes, this indeed did and does happen. Did happen to me. It does happen to people. It's happening right now, and we want to make a voice of it. Listen, it ain't my responsibility, my prerogative to cover up for someone who may be important now. You know, I'm just giving my description. Now, who they are now, they've got to deal with the element of that. They've got to deal with that situation. They got to deal with that. You know, just because they're the CEO now, you got to deal with that. And that person has to deal with that. And so that is not yours to own. But you must empower yourself. You must validate and give validation to the experiences that you have, right? Right? You've got to, watch this one, break the silence. Did you hear me? You got to break the silence, because I think that's the stronghold, or that's the strength rather. That's the strength of abuse. Silence. Nobody wants to talk about it, because if we don't talk about it, we can imagine that it has not happened. When we refuse to talk about it, we don't have to, allow, then I can live in a world, or people can live in a world where everything is hunky-dory and they can keep their idols and their images in place. Facts. That's what they do when you live in silence. And so you got to break that cycle, right? You got to break that cycle. I think one of the things that's happening right now is that silence is being broken. Not everywhere and not in every institution, but in the institutions that matter, that they're being broken. And you will notice that authority is connected to that. And authority hates when people who are perverted or misaligned or misappropriated their authority, hate when vocality comes. Hates when silence is broken. That's why NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, are signed, and that's why payoffs happen, because I don't want you to talk about it. I want this to happen and I'll pay you for it. You just keep silent, because I have more to lose if you open your mouth. I have more to lose. I'm going to lose, quote unquote, everything I built. But So let me just try to buy you off from what I have built and leave what I have built intact. Why should you live a life of pleasantries and ease? Why? Why should you do that when I'm holding the stick of the pain, when I'm holding the abuse, when I'm holding all of this mindset? Why should you live in freedom when I'm sitting there crying at night, or when my husband touches me or my wife touches me? I feel icky. I feel dirty. Why should I be the only one that's carrying the brunt of the violation? Right? And so you've got to break the silence. Yeah. And then there must be accountability and justice. Right? Because when you are honest about it, there's got to be that you bring things begin to balance out. There are going to be some people, yes, that don't believe you. There are going to be some people that literally do not believe what you're saying. And I get it. Because they're living in a delusion. They're living in a world where they don't want to think bad of anybody. But I don't have to think bad of you. You're missing the point. It's not about thinking bad about anybody. It is about accountability and justice. This person did bad. They did something that was against the law. They did hurt somebody. So don't reverse engineer that. Oh, I don't want that person to hurt. I don't want that person to be taken down. You didn't do that. The victim didn't do that. No, accountability says that justice is going to find me. It's going to find me in this moment. And again, when people are just twisted and perverted in their hearts, it doesn't matter what position. They are not contrite. They are not repentant. They're none of that. They just don't want to lose the quote unquote standing that they have in the eyes of other people. Bottom line, right? And so they want the victim to be victimized all of their lives. The violator wants to be celebrated and accelerated and promoted for their cover-ups. And what accountability does, it brings to bear them back to their vicious heart and humanity for their actions. That's reality. Yeah, y'all, that's what it is. And until that happens, there cannot be no, watch this, healing and recovery. Because, yeah, the victims deserve to recover and recover all, as the text tells David. You should not only recover, surely you shall recover. And you're going to recover everything that you lost. Right? Right. And when I say everything, I'm talking about everything that is essential to your being. Right? You're going to recover that. They deserve recovery. That little boy in you deserves recovery. That little girl that was demeaned and violently treated, that wife with the black eye, right? Or even worse, right? Deserves to be healed and recover. They do. And honesty is going to bring that about. And then healing and recovery brings prevention and awareness that as I'm on this journey, I bring to bear and allow people to understand that I'm not in this by myself, that there are other people. We need to make sure that don't go through this. Let's try to help people before they become violators and victims. Prevention is so much easier a lot of times than correction. Preventative medicine is always easier than corrective medicine and less expensive because the correction may not work. And unfortunately, that whole idea, that whole situation may not be able to be corrected. So that's why we have to really take note and be honest about abuse. And there are places and people that can help you. Absolutely. Listen, got to take one more break. I need y'all to keep it right here on the Culture Call with yours truly, Bishop L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3 FM, your inspiration station, having a talk about abuse and the effects of mental health. I need you to keep it right here. Do not miss it.
This is the world premiere.
Well, beloved, it's been a wonderful day here on the Culture Call. But guess what? All good things must come to an end. But listen, we've had a provocative conversation about abuse and its effects on mental health. And I need you to go ahead to my Facebook page and follow me. That's right. I'm going to be putting this one online today. I don't want you to miss it because I think it's something that we always need to hear over and over again that's going to help and empower our community. Would you do that for me? And if you know or if you are one that has been abused, find some help. That's right. Start breaking out of that shell and having a conversation about how destructive it is in our community and our relationships, and it affects every area of our lives, right? If you are a victim, know that we are with you. We are praying for you, and you are not wrong for your truth, and you are not wrong for your vocality, right? And if you are a violator, it's time to get some help before you get exposed. Listen, I'm covering all of my bases, all right? So that we can become a stronger community. Listen, at the end of every phone call, my grandmama and my mama always used to say, I love you a bushel, I love you a peck, and I love you a hug around the neck. This has been the Culture Call with yours truly, L. Spencer Smith, right here on Praise 93.3 FM. I want y'all to be good, have a pleasant day, love intentionally, be kind, and be sweet and at peace with all men. Y'all have an amazing day. God bless.